Hey, social media family, IG family, and YouTube family. I'm Ramona Phillips, the Healthy Mind Strategist, helping hurting people grow past that trauma into authentic leadership, regardless of their area of expertise, because we have all experienced some form of trauma. We've lost loved ones. We know what it feels like to be in relationships that did not work out. Maybe we went through abuse, right? Maybe there was some form of neglect. Maybe we went through divorce, right? Maybe we witnessed something. Maybe we lost something, some valuable possessions like large sums of money, whatever the case may be. We have all been through trauma. We got COVID-19 going on and some other stuff going on in the world. It's just a lot of stuff going on. It could have been an accident or anything. So, but we've all been through trauma. And because of the trauma that we've experienced, so many of us may be struggling with anxiety or fear or guilt, shame, or condemnation. We're struggling with some type of emotions, anger, feelings of insecurity, feelings of uncertainty, fear of the unknown. So there's always something that, there's some negative energy that will come up from time to time, especially if there is something that triggers that negative energy. I remember when first of all, I decided to go into counseling about 29 years ago because I had gone through so much trouble, so much trauma as a little girl. And I remember also, like, there was a fire on my block when I was living with my grandparents. I think I may have been about 3 years old at the time, and the one of those little tiny blocks in Philadelphia. And I just remember being a toddler, hearing the fire engines on fire, sirens, and glass breaking, and people screaming, right? And so a lot of times, because people are in survival mode and they're running all over the place like their hair is on fire, right? Sometimes they actually forget the children, is the toddlers, the kids, the babies are hearing all of this, and they don't even realize that it can be traumatizing to them. And I remember as I became a young girl, right? I remember being afraid of going across bridges sometimes for whatever reason. I don't know what that was about. Or like I said, or I would hear, even as an adult, I would hear fire engine sirens, and sometimes that would be a trigger for me. I tell that story a few years ago, maybe, I guess it's been a few years now, where during the Christmas season in my area, Santa Claus would come through the community in a fire truck. And guess what? It's like maybe 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. We're hearing fire engine sirens coming down the block. Well, that was definitely a trigger for me. I'm jumping out the bed, trying to get out the bed, feet all rolled up and caught up in the blankets and so on, right? Trying to get to the window to see if someone's home is on fire. Well, I guarantee you that I was not the only one feeling triggered by that experience. Although it was, to them, it was supposed to have been a good experience, but I guarantee you. So anyway, I said I was going to call, the townships, so on and so forth. But I realized the next time they came through like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I said, good. I got good. So I wasn't the only one being triggered by that. But the bottom line is, we may not realize it, but we've been emotionally triggered or affected emotionally, or maybe our nervous system has been affected. Some people, depending on the trauma, it could have been sexual abuse, depending on the trauma. Like, I was attacked in my home at the age of 15 years old and almost lost my life and spent 3 weeks in the hospital. So depending on the trauma, some people will develop or have developed, right, post-traumatic stress disorder, some type of anxiety disorder, some type of panic disorder. But how do we take care of ourselves when we know that when we're triggered? In other words, when something triggers that fear, that phobia, or whatever that negative energy is, how do we take care of ourselves? I've learned one of the main things that God wants us to do is to acknowledge that we feel the feelings. Now, sometimes we numb out, sometimes we get scared and we shame ourselves for having feelings, right? Because other people were shaming us when we had feelings as we were growing up, right? But the bottom line is, I've learned the importance of acknowledging my feelings. Our feelings are important, right? It's important that we process our feelings. It's important that we acknowledge how we feel. Hey, it's important that we know when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling sad, and why am I angry? Why am I sad? What's bothering me right now, right? Who's bothering me right now? Who's stressing me out? What situation is stressing me out? What's triggering that, right? Because sometimes it's people or a person, or sometimes emotionally we're too close and we have to step back a little bit, right? Because sometimes we get caught up in other people's drama, right? Or that's the bottom line. Sometimes we get caught up in something that has nothing to do with us, or something that we may want to fix, or some problem we want to solve that's not ours to solve, right? So, like I said, we've all been through trauma, some deeply distressing, disturbing experiences. And it's important that we know how to take care of ourselves when that negative energy comes up. It's important that we know when we are upset. So, when we acknowledge that, then we won't be so reactive. And I had to learn this because a lot of us, we grew up being reactive. Like, you cuss me, I cuss you, or you hit me, I hit you. And I know that hitting thing is like, you hit me, I'm probably gonna hit you back. But anyway, the bottom line is, it's important that we think things through. Think things through real quickly. Think about the consequence. Why am I angry? What am I going to do with this anger? I might feel like hitting someone. I might feel like saying the wrong thing, but there's consequences. And God reminds us to not do evil for evil. He says, do not do evil for evil, right? So he doesn't want us to cuss somebody back if they cuss us, right? But anyway, just a little example. But the bottom line is important that we know how to take care of ourselves, that we know how to detach emotionally, how to step back, leave the room, take a drive, get off the phone, or whatever the case may be. Stop texting that person, or call, whatever it is, wherever it is. Don't call that person at that moment because maybe we're too worked up, right? Or if we're afraid of something, or we're feeling some insecurities about something or someone, or feeling jealous, it's important that we're honest with ourselves. God wants us to be honest with ourselves. I had to learn how to be honest with myself. You know, a lot of us, we're conditioned to think and behave the way we think other people want us to behave, and think in ways that sometimes does more harm than good. So it's important that we know how to take care of ourselves emotionally. In other words, our emotions are important. What we do with those emotions when we're triggered or when those feelings come up is crucial, is even more important, right? We don't want to beat up on ourselves and shame ourselves and feel like we're less than, or feel like we're better than, and all this other stuff going on. So it's important that we know what it feels like to be emotionally detached, okay? So emotional detachment, what is it and how to overcome it? Let me share a little bit about that. So emotional detachment is an inability or unwillingness. Remember, God gave us a free will. Emotional detachment is an inability. Sometimes we don't even know how we feel. And somebody asks us, how do you feel? And we don't know how to express it, right? Because many of us, that especially if we've been traumatized in any way, or our feelings were not validated as little children, or we didn't get enough emotional support, we have probably got used to numbing out, just stuffing our feelings, right? So anyway, sometimes we choose to do it. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's not. Emotional detachment is an inability or unwillingness to connect with other people on an emotional level. For some people, being emotionally detached helps protect them from unwanted drama, anxiety, or stress. So that unwillingness, like, I'm not, you know what, I'm not going there with you because y'all gonna get I'm gonna get all stressed out, right? So you learn to pick our battles as well. For others, the detachment isn't always voluntary. Or I just don't want to talk about that. Right now. Let's both calm down, and then we can talk about it when we both calm down, right? So for others, the detachment isn't always voluntary. It's instead the result of events that make the person unable to be open and honest about their emotions. It depends on the situation. Sometimes we may not feel safe enough to even express ourselves. It depends on what's going on, who we're talking to, right? Who that person is. Emotional detachment can be helpful if you use it purposefully. Like I said, I'm not going there with you, or I'm not making that call right now because I already know I'm already worked up, right? Or whatever, something like that. In other words, we have a choice. So you may set boundaries. Boundaries, I love boundaries. You may set boundaries with certain people or groups. It helps you stay at an arm's length from people who demand a lot of your emotional attention. Got to be discerning about that. Is this person taking way too much of my emotional attention, and I'm getting too stressed out and worked up, right? But emotion, I tell people, I say, we have the right to take care of ourselves in all of our relationships. I don't care who it is, mommy, daddy, sister, brother, son or daughter, whoever it is. We have the right to take care of ourselves in all of our relationships. If we don't take care of ourselves, then how can we be there for other people, right? How can we make the wiser choice? But emotional detachment can also be helpful when you can't harmful when it's out of control, or when we feel like we can't control it. You may feel numbed or muted, in other words. This is known as emotional blunting, and it's typically a symptom or issue that should be addressed by a mental health provider. So if we don't know how we feel and we're walking around numb all the time, then we probably have some things we need to address, that we've been stuffing some unfinished business from a past relationship or something that happened to us long ago. We should not be walking around we can't feel nothing for weeks, right? So here's some of the symptoms of emotional detachment. Difficulty creating or maintaining personal relationships. A lack of attention or appearing preoccupied when around others. Don't know how to get in there and communicate and have a conversation with other people. Difficulty being loving or affectionate with a family member, right? How many of us grew up not getting those hugs, right? Avoiding people, activities, or places because they're associated with a past trauma or event. Reduced ability to express emotion. Difficulty empathizing with another person's feelings. Now I went through this with my ex-husband. Difficulty empathizing with another person's feelings. Not easily sharing emotions or feelings. Having a hard time telling a person how I feel or how you feel, right? Maybe even nervous, scared to be vulnerable and just say how you feel. This is how I feel. Not easily sharing emotions or feelings, difficulty committing to another person or a relationship, not making another person a priority when this person should be a priority, or this person is expressing their feelings and we're just totally detached and we don't know what to do with that as this person is expressing how they feel. Maybe we have the desire to run away, right? So there's some symptoms of emotional detachment. So what causes emotional detachment? Emotional detachment may be voluntary. Some people can choose to remain emotionally removed from a person or a situation. Now, been there, done that. It depends on the situation. Sometimes we have to choose to detach. right? Because sometimes a person's drama, their issues, their personality disorder can really be stressing you out. And my ex-husband had borderline personality disorder, so I had to know how to take care of myself in that relationship. So instead of going around and around in circles with him, at some point I realized, you know what, I need to detach because he's causing me too much, it's triggering too much anxiety for me. So other times emotional detachment is the result of trauma, abuse, or a previous encounter, some experience, something you may have witnessed, right? In these cases, previous events may make it difficult to be open and honest with a friend, a loved one, or a significant other. By choice, some people choose to proactively remove themselves from an emotional situation by choice. And choice is a good thing in most cases. This might be an option if you have a family member or a colleague or coworker or something that you know upsets you greatly. You can choose to not engage with the person or persons. I'm not going there with you. You're always bringing drama or whatever, right? This will help you remain cool and keep your calm, because some people like drama and some people like to pick and they like to argue and all of that nonsense, right? But God says we're supposed to be peacemakers. Jesus says we're supposed to be peacemakers, and we're not supposed to do evil for evil. So, in situations like this, emotional detachment is a bit like a proactive measure. It helps you and I prepare for situations that would normally get the best of us, right? So, in other words, that's when we choose. That's when we choose to step back emotionally, right? Like I'm too close and I'm really getting stressed out, right? And as a result of abuse, sometimes emotional detachment may be the result of traumatic events, such as a childhood neglect or childhood abuse. Children who are abused or neglected may develop emotional detachment as a means of survival. Many of us have gone through that. I believe I have as well. Children who are abused or neglected may develop emotional detachment as a means of survival. Children require a lot of emotional connection from their parents or caregivers. If it's not forthcoming, the children may stop expecting it, and that's important. I'm going to say that again. Children require a lot of emotional connection from their parents or caregivers. A lot of us didn't get that growing up. Our parents didn't even know how to give it to us, and a lot of our parents didn't get it. So then as adults, we grow up and we have to know how to still nurture ourselves, care for ourselves emotionally. So children require a lot of emotional connection from their parents or caregivers. If it's not forthcoming, the children may stop expecting it. When that happens, they may begin to turn off their emotional receptors. That can be sad. And that can lead to depressed mood. Yeah, children get depressed too, y'all. That can lead to a depressed mood and an inability to show or share emotions and behavior problems. And we know a lot of teenagers probably struggle with this. So what's more, children who were abused or neglected as a child, or even those who were just raised in a certain type of strict household, may also struggle with accepting other people's emotions, right? And the adult starts fussing and cussing and yelling, and it's a major trigger for the children, and then they shut down emotionally because they can't handle it. They may not know how to respond to a significant other in a time of high stress and emotion as well. So it's important that we acknowledge our feelings and learn how to take responsibility for how we feel, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves in all of our relationships, Once again, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. We have the right, because we're important too. We have the right to take responsibility, to take care of ourselves in all of our relationships. And if we're really struggling and we're not ready to communicate or talk at that time because we're too worked up or anxious, we have the right to say, you know what, I want to talk about this, but not right now. Let me just calm myself down. Let me step back, or I'll call you later. Or can we talk about this like 20, 30 minutes from now? I need to just step outside for a minute. I need to take a drive, right? We have the right to take care of ourselves in every relationship. You know why? Because our relationship with ourselves is very, very important as well, right? And that relationship with God. Now, sometimes we got to step off. Let me go talk to my Father. Let me go and pray about this and calm myself down, right? So emotional detachment isn't any official condition like bipolar disorder or depression. Instead, it's often considered one element of a larger medical condition. And these conditions might include a personality disorder. I have dealt with people with personality disorders, and my ex-husband had a personality disorder. They can be very difficult to deal with because it's like you're dealing with two different personalities, right? And they begin to clash, and you're trying to be the stable one, and there you're going back and forth with someone that's sometimes mentally unstable. So it's important that we know how to take care of ourselves. Some years ago, I read a book called Stop Walking on Eggshells. Personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. God led me to that book at a bookstore or when I was overseas, living internationally, and that book blessed me tremendously, and it helped me to learn how to manage myself and my emotions while I was still in that marriage. So these conditions might include, so in other words, how to recognize emotional detachment. Now, like I said, we can choose to detach emotionally, right, to protect ourselves, right? Especially if we're in a dangerous situation or we're feeling unsafe. But then there are times when we detach out of habit, when we need to when we need to feel our feelings and be empathetic toward the other person that's trying to communicate with us, right? Or get to us to say, well, how we feel, because they may genuinely care about how we feel. So emotional detachment can also be the result of trauma or abuse. I said that. Is there treatment for emotional detachment? Treatment for emotional detachment depends on the reason it's occurring. If your healthcare provider believes you struggle with emotional attachment and openness because of another condition, they may suggest treating that first, right? These conditions might include depression, PTSD, or borderline personality disorder. Medicine and therapy are helpful for these conditions. I like cognitive behavior therapy did help me when I was, struggling with anxiety. If the emotional issues are a result of trauma, your doctor may recommend psychotherapy, right, or talk therapy. This treatment can help you learn to overcome the impacts of the abuse that you may have struggled, that may be the reason why you're suppressing your feelings, or you're afraid to express yourself, right? So this treatment can help you learn to overcome the impacts of the abuse, and you also learn new ways to process experiences. It's so important that we learn how to process our experiences and anxieties that previously upset you and lead to the emotional numbing, shutting down, can't feel nothing, right? Which is very unhealthy, especially if it's for weeks, right? Those long periods of time, and we don't know how we feel most of the time, right? So what's the outlook for people who feel emotionally attached? What is the outlook for people who feel emotionally detached? For some people, emotional detachment is a way of coping with overwhelming people or activities, that aggressive personality, right? In that sense, it can be healthy. You choose when to be involved and when to step away from the drama king, the drama queen, right? The person that's purposely trying to push your buttons. You have the right to detach. I'm not going there with you. You can detach physically and walk off, or you can detach emotionally and physically, or we can detach emotionally, because we might be at the board meeting and somebody just keep raising their hand and trying to just start drama around the table, right? In other cases, however, numbing yourself to emotions and feelings may not be healthy. Indeed, frequently turning off your emotions may lead to unhealthy behaviors. These include an inability to show empathy or a fear of commitment. So, like I said, my husband had borderline personality disorder, so sometimes he would struggle with being empathetic, and we used to actually go back and forth about this. And I'm like, what happened? Why aren't you empathetic? At the time, I realized, well, I had to pray about it. I prayed about it. And then God showed me that he did have a personality disorder, because I felt like I was in a relationship with two men, and they were just like pretty much the opposite, per se. So what's more, people that struggle to express emotions or process them in a healthy manner may seek out other outlets for those feelings. This could include drugs, this could include alcohol, or aggressive behaviors. A person that's usually acting aggressively, they're really just trying to deal with their emotions, but they're dealing with it in an unhealthy way. These aren't a substitute for emotional processing, but they may feel like a way to release that energy, which is still not healthy. And then there's consequences, and we're messing up relationships, and sometimes people look up and they're being arrested, or whatever the case may be. They're in rehab, for a drug addiction or alcohol addiction or something like that. So anyway, and there's no shame in that. We want to be open to getting the help. That's what's most important, right? God does not shame us. He does not condemn us. God says he'll guide us into all truth. So the takeaway: emotions and feelings are a vital part of human compassion. I'm going to say that again. Emotions and feelings are a vital part of human compassion, a vital part of human connection. How do we can't connect emotionally? We can't feel each other. We can't, how do you feel that love if we're not in touch emotionally, right? Some people are able to turn off their emotions in order to protect themselves. For others, emotional numbing is unintended. Unintended. It may just be a habit, because a person instantly may feel threatened or triggered and go right into, survival mode, right? Many of us got used to doing that as little children, when we were being maybe abused, or were being neglected, or there was times when we just didn't feel safe. So it may even be a part of a larger issue, in other words. So like depression or personality disorder. So if you have difficulty processing emotions, or you live with someone who does, it's important you seek help from a mental health provider or mental health professional. These experts are trained to help you understand why you respond in this manner to emotions. They can then help you work through that behavior in a healthy way and attempt to correct it. Because sometimes we go about it in an unhealthy way, and it's important that we know that we're aware that, wait a minute, I'm not handling this situation correctly. I'm just feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling threatened, and I'm saying some things I should not be saying. Or instead of staying and talking it out because I feel so uncomfortable, I may be running away because I feel like running away, but I may not be in a situation where I'm not safe. In other words, I may be safe with my husband, but I feel like running away. But I'm terrified to stay and talk it out, right? So there are times when we need to detach, but there are times when we really are suffering emotionally, and it's important that we get the help that we need. And then there's situations where a family member, a loved one or something, a coworker or whatever, usually someone close to us, may just be going through something. Maybe we're too close and we're struggling helping that person. Maybe we want to help that person and don't know how, but we're getting over emotional, just even trying to help that person. And we're not really helping the person. We may be trying to help the person, but we're not really helping, right? So it's important that we learn how to detach with love. Also, there may be situations where we want to help and that person is like, just give me some space right now. Give me some time to think things through, to process. And then we can talk later. And both people are responsible for taking care of themselves emotionally, right? It's important that we learn how to detach with love. Because there are some situations also that we may want to get in there and fix. And God say, trust me. God is like, trust me, back off and trust me and pray about it, right? So detaching with love. Sometimes people we love do things we don't like or approve of. And then we react instead of responding and thinking things through. When we react, we're not thinking things through. When we respond, then we're thinking, we're choosing to think things through very quickly as possible anyway, before we say the wrong thing, right? It's like we have to remind ourselves, wait a minute, I'm talking to someone that I care about. I'm talking to someone that I love, so I can't just be saying any old thing and calling them names and on whatever the case may be, or being emotionally abusive, and then just expect them to just say, okay, or is everything okay now? Are you okay? And then just go back to normal. Because sometimes so much damage is done that there's no going back to quote unquote normal, right? Sometimes people we love do things we don't like or approve of. We react instead of responding and thinking things through. We react. Instead of behaving righteously, we react. And then many times we are sorry that we reacted, right? Or there's some consequences we realize we don't want to deal with. So we react. And then they react, right? Before long, we're all reacting to each other and the problem escalates. When do we detach? When we're hooked into a reaction of anger, fear, guilt, or shame. When do we detach? When do we choose to detach? When we're hooked in a reaction of anger, fear, guilt, or shame. When we get hooked into a power play, a power struggle, an attempt to control or force others to do something they don't want to do, or someone's trying to force us to do something that we don't want to do. And when the way we're reacting isn't helping the other person or solving the problem, and when the way we're reacting is hurting us. Often it takes time. Often it's time to detach when detachment appears to be the least likely or possible thing to do. Often it's time to detach when detachment appears to be the least likely or possible thing to do. In other words, we're reacting. Ain't nobody thinking about detaching. Ain't nobody thinking about taking a walk, taking a drive. Hold up. Let's stop this because we're both reacting to each other, right? The first step toward detachment is understanding. Understanding that reacting and controlling do not help. It doesn't help. The next step is getting peaceful, getting centered, and restoring our balance. Take a walk. Leave the room. Go to a meeting. Go to your support group meeting. Call a friend. All right? If you could have a therapist or a counselor or coach or something, call that person, your support person, in other words. Take a long hot bath. Call a friend. Call on God. We want to call on God first. I say that call on God first. Pray. Pray, God, help us through this because we both reacting, right? Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. Work down that anxiety. Breathe deeply. Deal with that fear. Breathe deeply. Let that anger subside. Then find peace. Find peace. Peace, where you at, peace? I done lost my peace, right? Peace. Peace. Sometimes you got to go get your word, get your scriptures, find a space, chill, and just read your scriptures on peace. Thank you, God, for your peace that passes all understanding, that keeps my heart and mind stable in Christ Jesus. Okay, and the more we say it, we start meditating on it, we start calming down. God gives us his peace. From that place of peace and centering will emerge a answer, a solution when we calm down, right? So tonight, I will surrender and trust that the answer is near. I will surrender and trust that the answer is near. Maybe I just need to cast my cares on him because he cares for me. Trusting God with all of my heart and leaning not into my own understanding. Maybe I need to let go of the fear and the need to control. Maybe I need to let go of the fear because something is triggering that negative energy and that need to fix it, that need to control so I can feel safe again. Maybe I need to let that go and say, God, I can't get honest and say, God, I didn't cause it, can't cure it, I can't fix it, and I surely can't make people behave the way that I want them to behave. I'm responsible for my own behavior. We're each responsible for the way we respond, right? And making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Are we choosing to detach, choosing by choice to detach from drama, right? Or are we walking around and we don't know how we feel 99% of the time? And it's going on for weeks, and we're trying to do relationships, and we're terrified of expressing ourselves, our true feelings, right? And in some of those cases, we may need a therapist, a coach, some professional help, right? Or a safe place, right, where we can express ourselves, get used to expressing ourselves, right? So I'm getting ready to go. Van, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. I want to go. I got to go because I like to look at the clock, and I don't like to be here longer than like 30 minutes or so. I came on like a little, maybe about 5 minutes or so late. But anyway, thank you guys for your time. Thank you all for your time. I pray that this message blessed you tonight. Hey, Van. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I'm Ramona Phillips, the Healthy Mind Strategist. Just remember that God loves you, that we're all created in his image and likeness. He gave us a free will. He gave us the power of choice, right? And we can choose, even when we're feeling a lot of negative energy, even when we're being challenged and we're going through a very difficult time, right? We can choose to still respond righteously, right? Even when we feel uncomfortable, right? We take authority over those emotions, right? And stop being so afraid. We're supposed to face our fears. God does not give us a spirit of fear, but he gives us power to face our fears. He gives us love. His perfect love casts out fear. And he gives us a sound mind. So I always say if we do the first two, then eventually we get the sound mind, okay? So I'm Ramona Phillips, the Healthy Mind Strategist. Thank you so much. Yes, to God be the glory. See you guys later. Bye-bye. Good night.